They have this pre-stomach, which is called the rumen. And if you look at the anatomy, you find the rumen, which is a large fermentation chamber. So the food that they chew, largely vegetation, enters into the rumen. Their bacteria ferment this product. And in ruminants with a cloven hoof, this food is regurgitated, goes back into the mouth, is chewed over and over and over, and goes back into the rumen. And then it passes through various chambers like the omasum, the abomasum, and eventually comes to the true stomach, the abomasum, where it is digested. And this fermented food passes all the way through the intestine, and the rest is then defecated. They tend to practice coprophagy. Coprophagy, phagy means feeding. They ingest their own excreta. That's one of the reasons why these creatures might be considered unclean. So it's also a form of chewing the cud, but of course, instead of taking it from a pre-stomach, the rumen, and regurgitating it to the mouth, they're taking it from the other side. And that makes a big difference. When the food passes through the intestine, then waste products are left together with digestible products at the end. And when recirculated, some of these chemicals like secondary bile salts and all of these issues which are detrimental are added to the food chain. So a rabbit, for example, rather than having a pre-stomach like a cow, has the fermentation taking place in the cecum, which is at the end of the intestine. So now there's only one possibility. You can't put the entire intestine into reverse, so the product has to pass out of the intestine, and the rabbit produces two kinds of feces. One is the pellet form, and the other one is a soft form, which it eats directly from the anus, and thereby the bacteria and the fermentation products which make the meal complete are re-ingested. But because it passes right through the intestine, you have some of the secondary products which are harmful also passing through the intestine, and this animal therefore has a higher toxic load than would a ruminant under normal circumstances. So we see the cecum here in this dissected creature is very, very large and lies there as a big fermentation chamber. If you unravel the intestine of a rabbit, for example, you have this normal intestine where the absorption takes place over here, and then you have the large cecum where the fermentation takes place. So the only possibility to re-ingest that is to take it from the other side.
This is our rabbit, Nathan, also known as Ranger Rabbit. This is a whole plate full of cecotropes that he outputted. Let's see if he eats it all. You want this, boy? Here, boy. Let's take that out of your mouth. Here you go. Oh my gosh, he's going to town on this. I can't believe you really like that.
يعني البعض يقول أن من حكمة تحريم أكل الخنزير أنه يأكل الروث ويأكل الأوساخ ويأكل هذه الأشياء. ماذا لو أتينا بخنزير وأبقيناه في حجرة مغلقة ولم نطعمه إلى الطعام النقي؟
أولا الخنزير حيوان نجس، حيوان قذر، حيوان رمام، يأكل الجيف ويأكل النفايات. حتى لو يعني ربيته في وسط يعني يحول بينه وبين ذلك، هو في فطرته في تكوينه يعني يأكل ما يخرج هو نفسه، يعني لا تستطيع أن تغيرها. بعض الخنازير والله أكلت روثها أمامهم، أكلت روثها أمامهم. فيعني هو حيوان بطبيعته التي فطره ربنا تبارك وتعالى عليها حيوان رمام، يعني ولا تستطيع أن تغير هذه الفطرة مهما جاهدت في تربيته تربية خاصة.
Now, an animal like a fish, which has fins and scales, is very interesting because somewhere in its life cycle, it is largely herbivorous, even if it is in the younger or larval stages that it is herbivorous. A fish is an amazing creature. It has a very high ability to detoxify itself. And of course, being situated in water, it's thermal. Eels, lampreys, catfish, all of these don't have scales. Now, where do they fit into the food chain? They are largely scavengers, and they will eat virtually everything. So they fall into the category of biological accumulation. They accumulate more toxins than the others do, and therefore should be considered unclean. Sharks and rays would fall into the category of the unclean, and they're a fascinating group of animals. Now, they live in marine environments, many of them, and when they live in the marine environment, they have a problem. They don't have the ability of the fish that have fins and scales to rid themselves of the salts which constantly move into the body as perfectly as the others do. So these creatures solve their osmotic water problems in a different fashions. A bony fish will excrete salts through the gills, so when it drinks seawater, it desalinates the seawater and gets fresh water through this process. And that is how these fishes survive in a marine environment. A shark, on the other hand, also has less salt in its body than the sea has. So you would have the problem that water tends to leave the animal. It has a salt gland in the rectum whereby it can get rid of some of the salts, but it solves its water problem by retaining urea. And so it has very high levels of urea. Urea is, of course, a waste product which other animals just excrete to get rid of it because it is toxic, but these creatures retain it and have developed a resilience and a resistance to this product. So in fact, they are like urea enhanced creatures. So what would happen if you took the fins of the top of the animal and dried them, what you would get is you would get crystallized urea. And when you make shark fin soup, that's exactly what you have. It's like putting a urea tea bag in the soup. It surprises me that it's so expensive.